Good evening and welcome again to the Canadian Orthodox Monastery of All Saints of North America. We're broadcasting again in the Synaxis Press production room. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about coming into contact with reality. You'll have to pardon my diction, sort of chemo and radiation and all that sort of grind one down a bit. We talked a little bit about artificial intelligence. Of course, we weren't just talking about Parliament when we talked about artificial intelligence. But there might be an improvement in Parliament, actually. Artificial intelligence is something that is developing rather rapidly. We sometimes see a crude form of it, where one can put a cap with electrodes on and it kind of reads brain waves or neuroactivity. You get some idea of what a person's thinking or what they're planning to do, and sometimes actually helps carry out those plans in a very minor way. The trouble is, this external cap can't really detect the source, the beginning point of any of these impulses, and is still left with a lot of guesswork. However, we have much more sophisticated mind-computer interfacing, and much more sophisticated artificial intelligence. Reading a person's mind completely is not some science fiction idea left to the far future. It's progressed quite a bit. One way you can see it is in the kind of almost board-like interface between the human body and certain machinery. Operating heavy machinery by wearing gloves that translate neural impulses. So you reach, these huge robotic arms on the side reach the same way. You move your hands in, they move in. You move down onto a theoretical object, you grasp it, these huge arms will grasp it, lift it, and you'll move your arms to where it's supposed to go and set it down. The machine will do this by the impulses, their own neural impulses. And I said sort of a board-like, a cyborg-like apparatus, because you've become melded to the machine at this point for operating it. Reading the brain waves and making them useful is proving positive in many medical ways. It helps people who can't move their arms by themselves to grasp a glass of water and drink. Certain things can happen because you think them, and the thoughts are transmitted into computer language, and the computer then carries out the order. And at this point, it's rather slow and tedious, but it's happening that it's improving every day, to the point that it would be a short time before interrogation can take place by probably implanting electrodes at first at least, and then reading the brain waves, translating them, coming out with a printout of what people are actually thinking, what they're planning, what preliminary plans are taking place in their minds. Eventually, of course, this will be extremely accurate, and at the same time, they'll be able to control various mechanical devices simply with their brainwaves. Now, this can be done with some weapons. Some weapons can be aimed and fired with the eyes already. Some of you have the more sophisticated and expensive computer games realize that this can be done, that you can play computer games with your eyes. And all of this bodes, we'd like to say good and bad, to certainly help people who are blind and deaf, people who are paraplegic, quadriplegic, crippled in various ways. It might even help us to resolve some psychiatric illnesses. But overall, it has a dehumanizing effect. In part of the artificial intelligence program is to try to override some of the frailties, oddities of human beings. In other words, the things that actually make us human beings and make our lives more interesting. Our mistakes are sometimes what make our lives more interesting. But mind-computer interface is another area that can be of great concern, and yet we can't turn this kind of research back. One reason we can't turn it back is because it has military applications. And if it has military applications, there are competitions among countries to develop it. These kind of avatar programs. The computer-mind interface is aimed towards downloading everything in your brain, all of your memories, everything that makes your personhood, everything, all of it. And some people have told me that they're even hoping to download your soul into the avatar so that you'd have a spiritual immortality. This is an actual plan that some people have in mind. Difficult to explain to them why you can't download the soul, because this is a providence, this is a special providence of God. But that content of the mind eventually will be downloaded. We have avatars or robots that can learn. They can develop mental, spatial, linguistic properties. They can learn to identify a young person from an old person, a child from a young person. They can remember names and identify the names by the face. All these things are already there. We see examples of them constantly. We see the avatars that are indistinguishable from the person that they're the avatar of. And one of the questions it raises, we know that mind is a function of the brain. It is not a metaphysical abstract. It is a function of the brain, and the brain is the instrument by which the mind functions. The soul, of course, supersedes all of these things, and in a way the soul contains the intellect. But the intellect is also the process of the brain. We'll see why the Holy Fathers were so adamant in saying that the soul without the body is not a complete personality. The soul without the body is not the complete person. Only the soul and the body together constitutes a complete person. And there are limitations to the activities and actions of the soul once separated from the body. Now, this has been said by a large number of the Holy Fathers, indeed everyone who wrote against Gnosticism, Manichaeism in any form, Bogomilism, and all these other things. And we see that they really know what they're talking about. So what happens then when you interface and transfer all the content of the brain, all these things that are recorded in electrical signals and storage and chemical storage and all that, into a robot? But you can't transfer a soul into it. can you transfer conscience into a robot if you can't transmit the soul? Or would we end up just creating a whole series of very powerful psychopaths trying to second guess God in creating is, of course, a very, very dangerous thing. And yet this is what is transpiring, and this is what is taking place, and we read about it in, these really, really professional magazines that the average person would never see or read, or being able to understand. And sometimes in these rather light, sort of journalistic science magazines such as Discover, which give us a lot of leads that we can follow. Scientific American, of course, is a very good magazine, but it really generally just gives us leads to follow up on things. I have belonged to a group working with and discussing these matters, although it seems at the moment higher authorities have decided to forbid me from working with these groups. I'm the only Orthodox clergyman who is doing it, and likely the only one who's actually qualified to do it. But somehow higher powers have decided they need some kind of revenge on me, and now they're stopping me from having this interface and this discussion with these people, at least face-to-face and in conferences, although we have a huge correspondence that goes through this monastery with people all over the world who are involved in these kinds of projects. And so we have constant, I guess what you call online symposia, discussions on ResearchGate. We share each other's research and papers on these subjects and shine some light into them. I think some of the clergy who are capable of this have gotten so envious that they would like to stop them from being able to do this. And of course, since I'm quite ill, they can always, a lot of them are probably praying at every Paschal meeting in the liturgy that I'll die soon, or serving special divine services for my early death. But in any case, so long as I'm able and have breath, I'm going to continue with these things because they have enormous spiritual ramifications and enormous significance. And I'm going to try to muster enough energy and strength to write about them. If some of my esteemed colleagues will perhaps not pray quite so hard for my early death, I might be able to actually finish one or two of them before I depart this life. But I want to invite people's attention to the realities of what are going on in the technological and scientific world these days. While people are debating petty, insignificant things in the church, things that amount to nothing more than who kisses whose hand and who stands next to whom at a service, there are momentous things going on in the world that need to have our attention turned to. I must say His All Holiness the Ecumenical Patriarch is one of the great minds and great men of the Orthodox Church in our day. A man who genuinely cares about humanity and the future of humanity, and who has taken upon himself for more than 20 years now to struggle in the ecological movement to try to ensure that the ecology remains and is sound enough for future generations. This is the great love of Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew's life. And I can't honor him and praise him enough for the great leadership and for the genuine love of humanity that he's given to us in these efforts. I think we all need to get involved to some degree as much as we can in these efforts. And I rather implore some of my colleagues to back off and leave me alone to allow me to be involved in these great momentous things to the degree that I can write some things on them to carry people into the future knowing what is happening and how it impacts upon the Orthodox Church and the faith. So I just want to arguable cyborgism not that far in the future. And it may involve only devices that are worn by people that read their minds and carry out the instructions of their minds, launching rockets, launching other kinds of military weapons and aiming them at the eyes, and the creation of avatars, which might not have conscience and might therefore be prime military use because they, having no conscience, they have the psychopaths and they can kill without any remorse or without any cringing at all. These are significant things that need to be explored and discovered. And if only we could put aside some of our pettiness, our small-mindedness in things, and focus on the bigger issues of mankind, of humanity, and of the faith. So I ask people, write your questions about these particular issues to me, and we'll see if we can find answers. We'll give you leads where to read further, and try from time to time to illumine you with the sort of thing that's actually going on in these fields today. They're significant, they impact on your lives, they impact on the lives of your children. And above all, give all of your support that you possibly can to His All Holiness the Ecumenical Patriarch in his great efforts toward preserving the biosphere, the life support system upon which all living things depend. And we can be proud that our Ecumenical Patriarch is leading the world in these efforts. Thank you all, and God bless you.